All right, everyone, welcome to Tableau conference. Welcome to our talk. I hope you are having a great time so far. I am Guangming Wang. I'm a software engineer on the formatting team. Our team owns the styling system that lets you style your viz from all aspects. I've been with Tableau for almost a year. In fact, I'm celebrating my first year this week. Great timing, right? There's a lot of fun going on at the Tableau conference. I hope you are feeling the same. For my personal life, I like traveling a lot. In this past Labor Day weekend, my girlfriend and I visited Alaska. We saw a lot of amazing things. In addition to the Northern Light and the glacier people all know about, we also had a lot of wildlife encounters in the Denali National Park. This photo was taken there. And in fact, it was taken by a friendly grizzly bear only 10 feet away from me.
Hi, everyone. I'm Shahaf Nuriel. I'm also a software engineer on the formatting team with Guangming. And I've been at Tableau for a bit over 2 years, and it's actually my third Tableau conference. So I've been here for a while, really. And in Tableau 10, I actually have a color palette named after me. It's called Nuriel Stone. So you should definitely upgrade to Tableau 10 for that.
That's great. I'm so jealous of you. I guess that's the benefit a veteran gets. For today's talk, we're going to cover why is formatting so important, so we're on the same page behind this talk. And we're going to go over formatting basics, like all the different levels of controls to let you format your viz. And we'll cover some tips to keep it clean, to polish the dashboard, to make it much cleaner without clutters. And we will also show you how to use colors effectively to make your dashboard more meaningful. And at the end, we'll show you some next steps. Since this is a beginner level class, we'll show you some pointers, like which talk to go next and what are the next steps to take to become a master at the formatting. Let's get started with why is formatting important. Formatting is everywhere in our life, such as the t-shirt I'm wearing today, or the packaging of the food you are eating for lunch, or the appearance of a house. I was house hunting recently, and I saw this picture online one day. What do you think about this house? I think it looks terrible, right? When I saw this online, I just crossed it off my list. I don't want to pay a visit to this place. Inside might be good, but the outside of it makes me think about terrible things about it, like where the horror movie was shot. So I think the owner of this house realized this problem, and they did some renovation to it. Let's take a look if that helps. Wow, that definitely helps a lot. In fact, I would totally check this house out and might be place a bid for it. You see how much difference formatting makes to this house. Let's take a stop here and think about our thinking process. What were we thinking when we looked at the houses? How did the appearance influence your decision? I'm sure you all have heard of the saying, don't judge a book by its cover. Why do we even have this saying? That is because we, as human beings, we have a natural response to what looks good, what looks bad. The presentation of a thing is the first thing you look at and form your judgments on. So why is formatting important for visualization? A well-formatted visualization shows your customer you care about them. You put a lot of thoughts into creating the dashboard to show them the data. So naturally, your customer will feel encouraged to explore with your data. So that's the first benefit of nice formatting. The second reason is a appropriately formatted dashboard could set up a good context about the topic your viz is talking about. It will give the customer some hints about what you are talking about and help them understand what is going on with this visualization. Let's take a look at the real-world example here with some visualization. This viz is created by the World Health Organization. It has a lot of useful information on it, but its look makes me think the information is outdated. It's like from 10 years ago, right? It doesn't give the viz itself the credibility it deserves. It's very hard to figure out what this viz is about. You'd be lucky to notice at the top, right next to the logo, there's a very small title that says malaria. Wow, this viz is about malaria. So let's take a look at the remake by one of our Tableau Zen masters. They are really good at making vizes with Tableau. Andy Cribble did a remake of the same viz, and it now looks totally different, just like the houses, right? Let's take a closer look at why this viz looks so much better. First of all, it now has a very obvious title that stands out with the color red, which people usually associate with danger and blood, which set up the context with for the viz. The image at the red top is a mosquito dripping blood. That enhances the context for the viz. And instead of focusing on the whole world, which is not a very effective usage of space, it now focuses in Africa, where the problem is most significant. And it also uses yellowish colors that people usually associate with diseases. Now you see here and there, you apply some tips to your viz. It looks totally different. Helps people understand what it is about and helps people get the idea you want to convey. We're going to show you. All right, yeah, help yourself. Feel free.
I didn't see the person who did it, but
It must be Shahab. We are going to use a workbook today to demonstrate some practical tips you can all take away and apply to your own viz today. The data we are using behind the workbook is about this year's Tableau Fitness Challenge. It is one of the most enduring Tableau institutions. It is a fun, competitive workplace competition. We form teams to do all sorts of things to earn points, like activities, consumptions, or general well-being. You can earn points by running, just like some of you did this morning, or flossing, or just simply avoiding not healthy food, like soda and fried food. Shahab and I both stand up for this competition. We're on the same team, and sometimes we become really competitive. We want to win the bragging right to make fun of each other. And at the end of the competition, you will find out, or you might have guessed it right, who has won that competition. I'm going to hand it over to Shahab now to talk about formatting basics in our workbook.
So one of the most important things to know about formatting is that there's a hierarchy. So this is what the hierarchy of formatting looks like inside Tableau. At the bottom level, there's the theme. The theme is the defaults that Tableau gives you. So if you create a viz and you don't format it at all, this is what your viz is going to look like by default. These are the values that Tableau sets for your font colors, for what your viz will look like without you doing anything. On top of that is workbook formatting. These are changes that you can make across your entire workbook to make it seem more consistent and cohesive. The next level is worksheet formatting. This is if you want to make specific tweaks to just one sheet for one visualization. So that way you can personalize each sheet if you want to. And then on top of that is the specific items level. This level is if you want to make small tweaks to just titles or tooltips, so just specific items on top of that. If you don't format something at the specific items level, let's say your tooltip, then Tableau will check if you have worksheet formatting for the tooltip. If you don't have worksheet formatting, it will fall and check workbook, and then finally it will check the theme. And the theme has values for everything, so for your tooltip, font color, for your font size, and everything. So if you format with this hierarchy in mind, you'll always know where your values are coming from. And if you want to change something, you can know at which level to change it to have what effect you want it to have. But this might not make a lot of sense just by showing it on a slide, so let's actually show some practical usage of this. This is our workbook that Guangming was talking about, where we're going to see if I win or Guangming wins, and I'm sure you know the answer. So right here, we have this calendar viz. It shows us how many points we got on each day, because we get points by day, and you have to record it, so we have to assume that Guangming didn't make up that he did a lot of weight training one day when he didn't, so we just have to trust him on that. We also have the weekly trends viz. So it's divided by categories because we can get activities, points for different activities or well-being and so on. And it just shows you the trend over the 6-week period of how well you did. You can see that I didn't do too well on week 4. So that's kind of the general idea that we're getting from this viz. And then this viz breaks down how many points we got each week for each activity. So it's a little bit more granular. This visualization, this dashboard, has a lot of useful information on it to see how I can improve, against Guangming. But it's not very inviting because it doesn't look that exciting. So the first level of formatting is the theme. This workbook was made in Tableau 9.3, but in Tableau 10, we released a new theme. We heard you saying that fashions change over time, and so does what looks modern and slick. And we wanted to adopt that into our product to make your life easier, to make it so you have to make as few changes as possible. Well, I want this new theme because I'm using Tableau 10.1, which was released only a few days ago. So it has the new theme. In order to do that, I have to go to Format, Workbook Theme, and choose the default because it's our new default. And once I make that change, you can already see that the viz updated and it looks so much cleaner. It looks a lot better. But what are the changes that we made to this viz? One of the biggest changes we made is that we now have a brand new font. We worked with Tobias Frere-Jones, who is a renowned font designer, to create a font that is specific for visual analytics, to make sure your text tables and your numbers are easy to read, to make sure that zeros look different from the letter O, and many small changes that I never even thought about, but he knows because he's a font designer, that come together to make the most beautiful font for visual analytics. And we now use it by default in all of our vizes. So we make sure that you're using these best practices without you having to do anything. The other change we made is we updated a lot of colors. We updated font colors and we updated viz colors, and there's a lot more to cover there, so we'll come back to that later. But it's important to note that a lot of things changed. Our defaults also became a lot smarter than they were before. For example, now we show grid lines only on quantitative axes. A quantitative axis is when you have numbers on it, and that's when grid lines really help you read your data. For example, in this viz, I have categories on rows, so like reading and walking. And I don't need grid lines there because they're not really helping me understand anything. But for my columns, I have grid lines, you can see right here, because they help me see where the bar chart lines up with the axis. So we put a lot of thought and little details into this theme to make your formatting life a lot easier. And so even though this new theme makes my workbook look so much better, there are still other tweaks I want to make to it to make it seem more personalized. The fitness challenge colors are teal and purple, and so I want to bring that into the workbook to make it clearer to someone looking at this dashboard that this is a fitness challenge dashboard. It's branded for it. So the next level of formatting is workbook formatting. You can find this in Format, Workbook. This is also a feature we released in Tableau 10. It's another great reason to upgrade. We have font options in the side pane, and there are 6 of them. And these 6 options will let you control your fonts for your entire workbook. And with every release, we're going to keep adding more and more options to make formatting easier for you. This top option is All. This will change the fonts across our entire workbook for titles, for axes, for tooltips, everything at once. This workbook is currently using Tableau Book, but it's probably hard to read it for the people in the back. The Tableau font has 6 different weights. It goes from Tableau Light to Tableau Bold and many options in between. So I can choose a bolder Tableau font options to make it easier for people to read my workbook. So I just go here and I select Tableau Medium, and I can see that everything in my viz updated to Tableau Medium. I have 4 sheets in this dashboard. There are 5 sheets if you include the dashboard itself. Before Tableau 10 and the Format Workbook feature, you would have had to make this change to every single sheet. I see some of you nodding, so I know that you understand the pains of this. Because a lot of people have lots more sheets and lots more dashboards, and it was annoying to have to go to every single one. And so now you can do it with a few simple clicks. If you don't like Tableau Medium, you can update it again to a different font, and it helps you iterate on your design a lot faster and see the changes that you made. And if you don't like the change you made, we have this dot right here that you can click on to clear the selection that you made, so you don't have to worry about it.
So if you've changed the formatting on a worksheet, and you go to the workbook and you're changing the formatting again, will it override what you did on the worksheet?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So if you format your worksheet, which we'll show in a second, and you go to workbook formatting, we will actually override all of your worksheet formatting to make sure that your workbook can be more consistent, because sometimes it's hard to know what values you changed in your worksheet. So this feature also lets you make your workbook cohesive and kind of start from scratch if that's what you want. The other thing I can do is I can change my worksheet titles to look more consistent across my workbook and to be a little bit more fun. Currently, they're just big and dark, but I want them to be teal because that's a lot more interesting and it fits with the fitness challenge. So I can do that in my Format Workbook pane as well. I just click on Worksheet Titles and select teal, and I can see that all of my worksheet titles here, here, and here changed at once to make my workbook look consistent. So now that I finished with the Format Workbook level, I want to go to the worksheet level formatting. I want to make specific tweaks to certain sheets. For example, this calendar viz I have here has lots of days, but it's kind of hard to see the separation between them. So I want to put borders around each day to make it easier to read the viz. I can do that on my dashboard. I just select the viz that I want to update, then go to Format, and since I want to change my borders, I select Borders. This is the pane that applies to sheet formatting. There are lots of options at the top. There's fonts, alignment, shading, and borders, which is where I landed. And these are things that specifically apply to your sheet. So that's where you can have the more granular control. So for example, I said I wanted to change my borders to be white to make them easier to see. So I can select white, and now I can see that the borders showed up on my viz. If, for example, I wanted my rows to be a different color than the rest of my sheet, I can make that change as well. For example, I can change my rows to be red and thick. And what we see here is that our rows are now red, and columns, which don't have any formatting that I specifically made on them, fall to the sheet. So the sheet is white, and that's why our columns show white. So there's also this hierarchy within sheet formatting. Personally, I don't actually like this red, so I'm going to clear it. We can always clear the formatting options that we make. So cell is now bold, which means that you've made a change. In order to clear that change, you can right-click on it and select Clear. And now I go back to my sheet formatting. So my borders here are white, and I can see that in my viz as well. So that was the worksheet formatting level. The next thing I want to do is I want to make more specific changes to my viz. For example, my title. This title right here is really long. It's kind of annoying to have a really long title. But if we read it, we can see that it looks like it has a subtitle. And subtitles are usually smaller than the actual title because they're not as important. So if I just double click on this title, or I can right click and do Edit Title, then I get this text edit window showing up. I can highlight the subtitle that I want to make a different size and change it to be size 10 and click OK. And it updates in my viz, and my viz also adjusts to accommodate for the different sizing of the title. It's important to note that specific item formatting sits on top of worksheet formatting. So right now, my title has size 15 and size 10 in it. That will not show up in the sheet formatting because that's a level below. So if I click on Format Fonts, which shows me my sheet formatting for fonts, and I look at the title, it still says 15. That's because at the sheet level, my font title is 15. So it will not show mixed. So if you want to see exactly what sizes you have to double click on this title again and see it. So it's important to note that every level that sits on top of another level, the level below won't show the changes on top of it. So every level reflects its changes only. So that's how you can get around the formatting in Tableau and understand where values are coming from. Something else that's really useful to format is your tooltips. For example, let's look at this tooltip. Is it easy to read? Not really. It's really long. It's just a list of things that are already on my viz. It's not giving me very useful information. But tooltips are a great way to have lots of information for your users and your audience in a more digestible, readable manner. So we want to make sure that we update this tooltip so people actually care about it and they don't get annoyed when it shows up. In order to do that, we have to go to the actual sheet. So we click on this Go to Sheet button, and we see our sheet. It has the exact same thing, it's just a little bit bigger. Right here is the marks card. In the marks card, we can control lots of different formatting options on our viz. So for example, tooltip. If I click on that button, I get the text edit dialog from before with slightly different options for tooltips. And I can see the long list of items that I had in my tooltip that I no longer want. Instead, I want it to say something like, Shahaf has blank points. But I don't always want it to say Shahaf. I want it to update based on the person you're looking at. So I'm going to copy the first name field, which is this, which will update based on the mark I'm looking at. And then I will also do the same thing for points to make sure it updates based on the bar that I'm hovering over. And I can paste that in there. And I can delete all the other stuff that I don't want. And I also want to update points to be teal so it stands out a little bit more and makes it easier for my audience to read. And it also matches better with my worksheet titles. And right here I can see the preview, and that's what my tooltip will look like. Way easier to read. Now that I click OK, as I hover over different marks, I can see that my tooltip is a lot more compact and it's way more useful than it was before. And now that my tooltip is so useful and easy to read, I no longer need those labels by each bar that are just cluttering up my viz. If someone cares how many points I got for running on one day, they could just hover over it and see how many points I got. They don't need it directly on the viz. So I'm going to remove those labels to make it easier for people to focus on my actual data rather than extra clutter. I could do that by clicking on the label button on the marks card and then just uncheck Show Mark Labels. Now my viz already looks more cleaned up. My tooltips still say the same thing, so they're still just as useful. And when I go back to my dashboard, I can see that it's already starting to look more put together and cleaner. And now Guangming is going to show us more tips that we can use to clean up our dashboard to make it a lot more usable for other people.
Thank you, Shahaf, for the renovation of this dashboard. I'm going to show you more tips to make it even more fab. After all, that's the goal. We're here today. So when I look at this dashboard, there's certain things I'm not very happy with. For example, I see. Thank you. All right, make sure you got the switch correct. So when I look at this dashboard, there's one thing I noticed. It's kind of crowded. Like, see, in the middle, there's no space to separate what is on the left and what is on the right. This is a simple problem to solve. So let's put some space over there. Let's close out this format pane which Shahaf was using earlier. And you can see on the dashboard pane, we have an object section. In this section, we have an object called blank. Click on this blank object, and we can drop it right in the middle of the dashboard. And we can also adjust the width of the blank object by click on it and shrink it. So after adjusting the width of this blank object, now I'm happy with the space in between. The next thing I want to work on is on this weekly trend sheet. As you can see, it has a lot of numbers on it, and the legend is also taking a lot of space, which is cluttering my dashboard. So another thing you will notice is the axis here starts from 0, but we don't have week 0. Our data starts at week 1. How do we fix this problem? It's very easy. Just right-click on the axis. And in this context menu, the first option is Edit Axis. Click on that. And you can see here we have a range section. It is set to default to be automatic. But in this case, we actually want it to be fixed. So click on fixed. And you can see it's fixed start at 0. But like I said before, our data starts at week 1. So I would just change this value from 0 to 1 and click OK. Now we go back to the viz. It starts at week 1 now. We no longer have that space. This weekly trend is basically showing how we are doing over a week 1 all the way through week 8. We don't really need the numbers on both the axes. The points, we don't really want to read them. We only want to see the trend. So is there any way I can have the axis headers? Yes, of course. This is Tableau. Everything is possible. So just click on it, and you can see in the context menu, there's Show Header option. It is checked by default. And click it. You will clear that axis header. Let's do the same thing for the vertical axis. Just click it again. Now the header is no longer there. You see, there is grid line on this viz, but we are not actually reading the numbers, so definitely we don't need the grid line. That is also easy to change. Let's format this worksheet. Click on the Format menu here, and you got a context menu for Format. Click on Lines. And you can see the grid lines option on this Format pane, along with a bunch of other options. The grid line is currently set to this one here. In order to get rid of the grid lines, just click on 9. Now it looks so much cleaner without the lines. We only have without the grid lines. We only have trends for different categories. The last thing I want to fix is the legends. As you can see here, the legends are represented by different colors, but we have those colors on the line charts. We don't really need the legend. Click on the legends zone here and click Remove from Default. Now we no longer have the legends. But how do I figure out what category each line represents, right? Remember when Shahab was here, she disabled the text on the viz. There's a similar thing we can do here to show the text on the viz. So it really depends on your use case and the context. You can choose to do different things with the same technique. Click on Label, and we see there's the option called Show Mark Labels. Check that one off. Boom, you have the text displayed there, just acting like a legend. Well, there's more I want to do with it. I want the text to match the actual color of the line it represents, to make it feel like more of a legend. How do we do that? You see we have a bunch of options here, and font is the right place to go. Click on this drop-down menu, and you got this context menu. By default, it's set to be automatic. What that means is Tableau will help you figure out the color of the text based on the context. For example, if your background is white, it will choose black. If your background is black, it will choose white, because we want it to be readable all the time. This option here, Match Mark Color, means we're going to match the color for the text to the color of the mark. Let's click on it and see what happens. Now my text is using the same color as the line it represents. This is essentially the legend. Let's go back to the dashboard and check it out. Yeah, now it looks so much cleaner, right? The next thing I want to work on is this filter. We have a filter here to provide interactivity. If you click on this drop-down list, we have 1,000 names here, because this year the Fitness Challenge was really popular, and we had more than 1,000 participants. But this dashboard here, what we care about is really Shahaf and I. So is there any way to make the filter only have 2 of us, so we can switch between her profile and my profile? That way we can see easily who is winning the contest. I have a pre-made worksheet here, which we can use as that filter. But first thing first, let's get rid of this filter. We need to clear the filter first so it doesn't interfere with the new filter I'm going to add in. Click on this clear button here. Now there's no filter applied. And remove this filter from the dashboard. Now let's go to this worksheet. As you can see, the title is Worksheet as Filter. That is exactly what I'm going to show. We're going to use this worksheet as a filter. On the canvas of this worksheet, we only have 2 names now. That is because we have a filter on our first name. And only my name and Shahaf's name are checked on this filter. And when I hover over, I can see I can select either one of the 2 marks. With this worksheet, let's go back to the dashboard. Let's add this worksheet to the dashboard. Click on the worksheet, drag and drop it to the place you want. Let's put it here for now. You see, by default, because we have the filter in that worksheet, the filter is added to this dashboard. But this is not what we want. We are using this worksheet as filter. Let's close this one out. Do we need the title? I don't think so. This is a filter. The customer will realize this is a filter, so why do we need the title? Let's remove the title as well. Click on this downward arrow. You get a context menu. Clear the check mark in front for title option. Now you don't have the title. What about the scroll bars? We got scroll bars on both directions. I don't want them. Let's change the fitting option for this worksheet. Click on that same arrow here, get the context menu. Change the fitting option from standard to entire view. Now you can see the content of the worksheet is filling out all the space that is available. Maybe it has too much space. It's conflicting with the point overview here. Let's give it less space. In order to use this worksheet as a filter, the last thing we need to do is to set that option. Obviously, that option is, again, in this context menu. It's as easy as click on this Use as Filter option in the context menu. Click on it. Boom. Instantly, you can see the filter got kicked in. And the dashboard now is showing Shahaf's performance. And if I click on my name, it's showing my performance. So this way, we limit the data to be only what we really care about. Well, you may see that we have names appear twice on this dashboard. What if we do something cooler? Like I showed you earlier in the malaria viz. Can we replace the names with pictures representing each one of us? Yes, we can definitely do that. Let's go back to the worksheet and see how we can achieve that. On the marks card, you can see the mark type is currently text. In order to replace the text with the images, we need to use shapes. Let's change the mark type from text to shape. Now you see shapes, but we also need to move first name to shape. So we got represented by different shapes. A square representing me and a circle representing Shahaf. But that's not really the image I want, right? This is just a regular shape. They don't say anything about ourselves. Let's click on the shape object on the marks card. And we got this context menu here. This dropdown lets you select different shape palette. Let's see what we have. What got shipped with Tableau by default. It has a bunch of default choices, but none of them fit my use case. Don't worry, I can add in custom shape, and that's very easy to do. All you have to do is to go to your Tableau repository. On a MacBook Pro, it is in my documents folder. So go to your Tableau repository and click on Shapes. Now you are inside the Shapes directory. And all those folders here are the ships palette we saw a second ago. Let's create a new folder to contain our custom ships. We'll name it Fitness Champs, as we are leading the scoreboard. Enter this directory, and I have my ships ready on another directory. Let's copy and paste them into this folder. Now we have our custom ships inside my Tableau repository. Let's go back to Tableau and check it out. Click on Select Ship Palette again, see what is available. Do you see Fitness Champs? Well, I don't see them. Why is that? That is because you haven't notified Tableau yet we have added custom ships. In order to do that, to make Tableau aware of the new ships you added, click on Reload Ships. Now let's go back to the drop-down list. Here we go, the Fitness Champs custom ship. Choose that. Now we can select the data item and assign the pictures to the corresponding data item. I'll click my name. We got two options, and it's very obvious which one I'm going to pick. I like weight training a lot, so I'm going to use this weight training guy. And I know Shahaf runs a lot. Not sure if you saw her this morning. And we're going to assign this running lady to Shahaf. Click on OK, and you see on the worksheet now, we have those two ships representing Shahaf and I. To make the ships look better on this worksheet, let's change the view option from standard to entire view. So it takes the entire space. Let's go back to the dashboard and see what it looks like now. So now instead of the names, we see the images. The figures on the worksheet might be too small. We can adjust the size of the ship. And let's go back to the worksheet. Click on the size object on the marks card, and you are presented with a nice slider. Moving the slider will increase or decrease the size of your ship. Let's just try it out by moving it to the middle. Go back to the dashboard. That fits pretty well. Now when I click on Shahaf's icon, I see Shahaf's information. And when I click my icon, I see my information. But to a new user, they may not know what those two figures are, right? How do you figure out those two figures are actually filters? One way to solve that problem is to put a text zone, next to it to explain what those two figures are. But I don't think we have more space, and I don't want to clutter my dashboard. We can solve that problem by using information tooltip. Let's go back to the worksheet. So right now, when I hover over my mouse, nothing happens. We can easily change that. Let's click on the tooltip object on the marks card. It is empty, so it's not showing any information. Shahaf showed you earlier about customizing the content in the information tooltip. Let's do similar things here. I wanted to show what this filter does to a user when a user hover over on those marks. I will say something like, please click me to see the person's data. And the person is where the user hover over her mouse. We can insert a dynamic field here for our first name. And now let's click preview. It will show click me to see their data. On this preview, it says both of us, but let's go back to the worksheet. And when I hover over my mouse, it says, please click me to see Guangming's data. Is that still the case on the dashboard? Let's go back to it and check it out. When I hover over, it says, please click me to see Guangming's data. And when I hover over Shahaf's little figure here, it says, please click me to see Shahaf's data. And the filter still works as it worked before. Now we have made those improvements to the dashboard. I'm sure Shahaf has more to talk about. Let's welcome back Shahaf to talk about colors.
So now that our dashboard is already looking a lot cleaner, we want to spice it up with some cool colors, right? Colors can really make your dashboard go from drab to fab, and we're definitely going for fab here. But it's also important to remember that even though colors can make your workbook look beautiful, they're also very important for visual analytics. So you want to make sure that you use them correctly so you're not confusing your audience when they're looking at your data. In Tableau 10, we also released a whole lot of new color palettes, along with the theme, along with the font, along with workbook formatting. We made a lot of improvements. So for example, my viz here that shows the different categories is using Tableau 10 Classic. This was the default color palette we used for categories before Tableau 10. But now we have updated color palettes, and I want to use one of them. I also want to use a different color palette because, like I said earlier, the fitness challenge is themed with teal and purple, and I want my dashboard to really convey that to my audience so they know what this is about. So I want to update my vizzes to be fitness challenge themed. So if I go to the sheet, I can see the color button on the marks card. I can click on it and select Edit Colors. Right here, we see the new Tableau 10, which is what Tableau will have you use by default when you have only 10 or fewer categories. But I don't want to use Tableau 10, even though it looks amazing. We worked with color specialist Maureen Stone and many designers to make sure that the color palettes we put in Tableau 10 are visually correct and visually beautiful. When I click on this dropdown, you can see just how many new color palettes we have. They're all new, and they're all really pretty. My personal favorite is obviously the Nouriel Stone. So that's the one I'm going to pick. And I click Assign Palette, and it gives the first 4 colors because we assign the colors in order to make sure that the colors are as different as possible on your viz to make it easier to distinguish. If you want to learn more about the color palettes, Maureen Stone is actually giving her own talk, giving a lot more details about this. So this is just an overview here. I want to change the last color to not be yellow because that doesn't go with the fitness challenge theme. So I could just select the color I want to change and select a different one from my color palette. I selected gray. And now I like the colors I have. They meet my requirements for the fitness challenge. And I click OK. And they updated with my viz. If I go back to the dashboard, I can see that the 2 vizzes I have that are using the same field, the categories field, both updated. That's because the colors you assign are associated with the field. So that way you can keep the same consistent color across your workbook, which makes it a lot clearer for your audience as they're looking through different vizzes that purple always means activity in this case. And so it really helps make it a clear workbook. And so right here in my calendar viz, I have the teal blue color palette, which is also the default in Tableau 10. And even though it's going really well with my fitness challenge theme, I'm not sure it's the one I want to use. If we read the title for this viz, we see that it's saying that it's comparing to a minimum of 30 points. That's because you can get 30 points by not doing any activity. So if I just make sure to eat healthy, but I don't do any running or walking or anything, I can get 30 points. So we want to make sure it's really obvious to people when they got over 30 points, like they actually did something, and when they got under 30 points. In order to show that difference, we want to use a diverging color palette, which can differentiate between colors, between data a bit more. So we can double click on this color legend, which is another way to get to the color legend dialog, and we can pick one of our diverging color palettes. These palettes are also all new and updated with Tableau 10. And I can pick just the first one, orange-blue diverging. That way I know when people got less than the midpoint, which is right here, it'll be orange, and then it'll be darker blue for when they got over that many points. So it makes it a lot clearer. When I click OK, I can look at my dashboard, and it updated, and it's giving me what I want, but now the orange and the blue look terrible. I mean, they're very beautiful colors, but they're just not matching my Nouriel Stone color palette. But I don't have a Nouriel Stone quantitative color palette. So what do I do if I want different colors? Well, we can create custom color palettes in Tableau. So if we double click here, we currently don't have the custom color palette, but if we go back to the Tableau repository where Guangming showed us that we can add shapes, we have this preferences file. When we double click on it and open it in a text editor, it looks like this. So it doesn't have any custom color palettes in it yet. But we could put code in there to make it so we have the custom color palettes and the colors we want. This is all on the help pages online, which we will provide links for at the end, so you don't have to rush to write this down, and they're very clear instructions. And so I can paste in the color palette that I want. Right here it says the palette name, which is Fitness Challenge Diverging, and the type, which is Diverging Color Palette. And I selected 5 colors to make sure it goes through the correct gradients. I selected 2 purples, a middle color, and 2 teals. And then I will restart Tableau in order to see my new color palette. When I select this dropdown, I can see that it now shows up at the bottom, Fitness Challenge Diverging. And now I have the nice colors that I want to match the rest of my viz. And when I click OK, I can see that my calendar, it's doing pretty well. Like half of the days I got teal, and half of the days I got purple, so it's not bad. Let's look at Guangming's, because he told me he works out a lot. And I don't know if I believe him. But now, with this new diverging color palette that I have, it'll be a lot easier to compare my data and Guangming's data. So we can use this filter that we put in here. Whoa. His data is really purple. Right? Like, he has a lot of purple. So I think it means he was probably kind of lazy, and I probably won, right? But if you actually look at the color legend, you see that dark purple for Guangming is 35 points. 35 points is the most I got on any day. Any day. That was like my max. So for me, it was dark teal. But for Guangming, it's the minimum. He got 35 points like on just a regular day. So this viz is really misleading, because even though it looks like I did better just by the colors, if we actually look at the numbers, if we look at the data, we realize that Guangming did way better than I did, which is really embarrassing to show you. But we want to make sure that what we're showing people is accurate, that it's easy to read. So we need to fix our color ramp to make sure that we can actually compare our data more accurately. If we double click on the color legend again and click on advanced, we have a few more options. Just like we fixed the axis, we can also fix the color ramp. So we'll start at 0, because someone could get 0. Not saying that I ever got 0, though. And then we'll end it at 60, because that's a lot of points. And we'll center it around 30, because that's what we said we want to compare against for the minimum number of points you can get without doing anything. When we click OK, bam. Guangming is all teal. He's killing it. And when we click on me, we can see that I still have a lot of purple. I definitely did not kill it. But in my defense, I hurt my ankle, right? So it's not my fault. So now we see how important it is to fix your color ramp when you're providing filters for your audience, to make sure that the comparison you have across filters is consistent and easy to understand. And now when we look at this dashboard, we can see that it already looks much better than when we started, just with these few simple tips that we gave you. But do you guys remember what it looked like when we started? Probably not. No worries. I have a screenshot. Oh. Wait, there it is. That's what it looked like. So, I mean, it looked okay. It was definitely usable, but it was not nearly as awesome or as fabulous as this dashboard looks. So this was a beginner talk, so we gave you a lot of tips and tricks that you can do just to understand the formatting system. But there are crazy things you can do with Tableau formatting. This is one example by Jewel, who works at Tableau, who's really good with formatting, and a viz that she made. It looks amazing. It makes you want to go play with this data because it looks so good. It's up on Tableau Public, so you can go play with it. And she's also giving a talk about advanced levels of dashboarding and formatting if you want to learn more, so you can get to really awesome vizes like this. Here's another example of a beautiful dashboard that someone made with Tableau. Here's another one that's absolutely insane. But all of this can be done in Tableau. You just have to know the basics first and work your way towards these levels of formatting. If you want to learn more about formatting, these are all the links of tips that we got in our talks to put our talk together. So if you want to learn more about any of these, like the custom color palettes and the formatting system, you can go to any of these links. And if you just want to go and play around with these examples, and of course these will get published. And if you want to go and play around with the examples that we showed you at the end of really advanced, awesome formatting, we also have the links here. But if you want to learn more just at TC right now, since you're here for the next few days, there are several talks that you can go to. There's the one we mentioned about that Maureen Stone is giving about colors, to learn how to really use colors and the science that went behind them. And then there are many more options of things that you can learn in the dashboards track. And if you want to recommend to other people to come to this talk, it's being given 2 more times, once tomorrow and once on Thursday at these times and locations. And please, before you leave, if you could just make sure to complete the survey about our talk in the app, that would be extremely helpful for us, because we look at this feedback and we improve our talks for later in the week and then for the next TCs. So it's really useful information. It's a pretty quick survey. And if you have any questions, feel free to come up to me and Guangming at the end of this. And thank you so much for attending.
Thank you. We'll leave the related session here in case you want to know what they are.